Good evening and welcome along to the Locker Room European Special as we preview. We've got three special shows this week where we're going to preview all the Scottish teams in Europe, Celtic, Rangers and Hearts. Tonight it is all about Celtic, who played against Real Madrid. My name is Graham Duthie and I am joined by a stellar cast tonight. Firstly, let us welcome the main man himself. It is Mr. David Smith. David, how are you?
Yeah, very well, Graham, and good evening to Alan and Paul as well. Pleasure to be on with you both.
Absolutely, and let me give the introductions to the two in the bottom there. It's debuts. Firstly, a man from the Celtic podcast, Celtic by Numbers. It's Mr. Alan Morrison. Alan, thank you for joining us, mate. How are you?
I've been called worse. No, good, thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me on, Graham.
No problem at all. And of course, the man on the other side, a legend of Scottish broadcasting for me. I'm a massive fan, and he hasn't paid me to say that. I genuinely believe that. It is Mr. Paul Mitchell. Paul, again, thank you for joining us. How are you?
I'm great, thank you, and thanks for asking me along. It's a pleasure to be here and a chance to chat some Champions League football, so thanks for asking.
Absolutely no problem. So let's get straight to it. So Celtic played against Real Madrid tonight. Celtic going down by 3-0 against a very, very impressive Real Madrid side. But before we get into the actual game, I just want to come straight to yourself, Alan. I, as many people know that watch the show, I'm a massive Hearts fan. And, you know, for Hearts, Hibs, Celtic, Rangers, European nights are very, very special. It's a different kind of atmosphere. And the atmosphere at Celtic Park tonight was absolutely electric.
Yeah, it was. And, but what we didn't want was, for Real Madrid to turn up, take the photographs, enjoy the singing, and then go home with 3 points. And that's kind of what happened. We wanted to really, give them something to think about, make them work hard, and really try and land some blows. And I think, we did that. The atmosphere is what you'd expect it to be. But what a team! What an amazing team they are! The way that they played out from the back, the way that they continually beat the press was just incredible. Absolutely, the touch of all the players from front to back was amazing. So fair play to the fans. They kept going to the very end. They were encouraging, which is great. But I think we were given a lesson by the end of the game.
Paul, you've covered many European nights as a Scottish commentator. I mean, I know you have to do your job when you're there, but can you kind of sample the atmosphere before a game like tonight as a commentator?
Yeah, I think you can take a couple of minutes out, to sample the atmosphere. I mean, I've done some European games at Celtic for both television and radio, and for TV, you go up all the way to the back of the stand, you walk along, you go up at the ladder and you walk along the roof, and you come down into the TV cradle for commentary. That's goosebumps moments, to stand on top of that stand. You hear the noise brewing, you're watching people still flooding in. There's some of my favourite moments in European football, just being on that roof and just anticipating what's going to come. I think we're very lucky. I think Scottish football has got fans that allow good European nights to be passionate. European nights, be that Kilmarnock, Motherwell, Dundee United, as well as Rangers, Celtic, Hearts, Hibs, etc. I've had some great European nights at most of the Scottish grounds, and I think we tend to take the atmosphere for granted a little bit at times, but sometimes it's good to take the headphones off and just actually listen to what's being built up. It's always special.
Dave, when the draw came out for the Champions League and Celtic were drawn against Real Madrid, I mean, even as just a Scottish football fan, the buzz around this game tonight was incredible. And I think that showed tonight. The atmosphere, as I said earlier, was brilliant. Real Madrid coming to town, a fantastic team, the European champions, and just what an occasion that was.
Well, off the park, obviously, Real Madrid arrived in sublime style yesterday because the hotel was in the city centre of Glasgow. Ironically enough, I was expecting it maybe to be in the outskirts, but the hotel was based in the city centre. Let's just say there was a lot of people waiting for the Real Madrid stars, such as Modric and Benzema, Courtois, and all those star-studded players. But even then, you can just gather from the outside looking in that there was a lot of players excited for what's to come, and there was a lot of fans as well that was excited for what's to come. And that transpired on to tonight because there was a lot of excitement, there was a lot of publicity for Scottish football. prior to tonight, and then obviously tonight was a really good atmosphere at Celtic Park, and the game never failed to deceive either, because Celtic played very, very well opening 20 minutes, and Real Madrid came into the game as the game evolved. So full credit to Real Madrid for also getting the job done, but Celtic put in a very valiant effort. But yeah, I think it was a good night for Scottish football. And, nights like this need to be a recurring theme now. It can't just be a one-off. Let's do it then, and then we get another event like this in 15 years' time. But also, I don't know if you agree with me, but when PSG come to town, when Man City come to town, such as what they have been over the last decade, there was not that same buzz. I think Real Madrid offers a different dynamic to proceedings, and that was definitely shown at least over the last 48 hours.
We are here to 10 o'clock tonight, so please keep your comments coming. We've got a busy one tonight, and let's start with the Celtic team news that came out first. So there were two changes to the team that beat Rangers by 4-0. Maurice Jens came in for Karl Starfelt, and obviously Georgios Giakoumakis came in for Kyogo. So the Celtic side was Joe Hart in goal, a back four of Josef Juranovic, Maurice Jens, Cameron Carter-Vickers and Greg Taylor, a midfield three of Callum McGregor, Rio Hatate and Matt O'Reilly, and up front was Jota, Abada and Giakoumakis. Obviously, Alan, a massive blow that Kyogo wasn't out, but was that kind of the team that you thought it might have been?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, once it was known that obviously Starfelt's take on a muscle injury, so he wasn't going to make it. Kyogo was on the bench. The manager said he wasn't 100%. So Postecoglou isn't one for mind games or for playing, tinkering with selection. He was always going to play that side, I think. So it was as predicted, really. So no surprises for me, certainly.
Paul, if you look at that bench for Celtic, obviously two goalkeepers. They have Benji Siegrist and Scott Bain, but they also had Kyogo, Haksabanovic, Moy, Turnbull, McCarthy, Bernabe, Maeda, Forrest, Ralston, Welsh. And when you look at that Celtic squad, it is, we've spoken about this on the show before, it's a very, very strong Celtic squad.
It's one of the stronger Celtic squads, and I take Dave's point. If you are going to compete in Europe, you want to be able to compete properly, not just have a team come to town and give them a go. And I think what we saw tonight and what you'll see is Celtic basically do need almost that, the two teams. They've got pressure on them in the Scottish Premiership this year. You could argue a few years ago they hadn't had that same pressure. Therefore, the European team was there and the Scottish Premiership team was perhaps a little bit below. What I think you'll find is Celtic are strong enough to handle both fronts. I think disappointingly tonight that with Kyogo missing, I'm not sure Giakoumakis is good enough at this level if you're wanting to take chances at Champions League level. And I think the loss of Kyogo was a key one. Yes, he's on the bench, but I don't think there was ever really any serious intention of him coming out and doing much tonight. So I didn't think that was going to happen. We saw him for 18, 20 minutes, but if he'd been fit, he would have started, and I think he does make a difference to Celtic.
Dave, if you look at that Real Madrid side, I mean, the names roll off the tongue. You start with Thibaut Courtois, you've got Dani Carvajal, David Albada, you've got Milito, you've got Mendy, and that midfield, I spoke about this on the podcast before, Toni Kroos, Luka Modric, absolutely incredible. Then you look at that front three of Valverde, Benzema and Vinicius Junior. I mean, European champions, and what a team that is to come up against.
Yeah, but first and foremost, I had to go and check who Aurelien Tchouameni was, because I didn't know who he was. That's one thing I learned tonight, that's for sure. But no, Real Madrid have quality over the park, but not just all over the park, they've got quality in the bench as well. I mean, as you've alluded to, they've got Courtois, they've got Militao, they've got Alaba. Alaba, just for clarification, isn't really an out-and-out centre-half. He does everything. He's a utility player. He's brilliant with that. You can play anywhere across the defensive line. He can even play further forward as well. Mendy obviously offers a lot to Real Madrid. Pardon me, as does Carvajal. Modric obviously 37. Was it you, Graham, that said he's 37 on Friday? And the fact that he's still putting in star-studded performances and scored tonight obviously shows the quality that he has. Obviously, you've got Kroos and you've got Benzema and Valverde and Vinicius Junior, but not only that, Graham, you've got players on the bench as well, such as Hazard and Lucas and Rodrigo and Rudiger. Rudiger was obviously at Chelsea. I was a big fan of Rudiger when he was involved at Chelsea. And Hazard, you kind of made the point in the group chat game that Hazard's not been the player that he was at Chelsea, but Hazard's a player that can still offer a lot. And I think tonight was the perfect game for Hazard to come on, kill the game for Real Madrid, and he did that with that third goal. And he killed the game off. He killed the game off as a contest. And Eden Hazard showed his quality. I mean, we're never going to see the Eden Hazard of 5-6 years ago because he was quality at Chelsea under Ancelotti. Ancelotti, in fact, he was quality at Chelsea under Ancelotti. But yeah, he's shown his quality again tonight. And I think if anybody can get the best out of Hazard, it's Ancelotti, and that was proven tonight. Also, Real just showed a quality after that probably 20-minute mark because, as I said, Celtic started the game very, very well, but European champions are renowned for showing resilience, showing a bit of character. They've got a fantastic mentality. Real Madrid have one of the best mentalities in world football at this precision time, and that was shown tonight, especially with Celtic started the game very, very well. The way Celtic play was a bit of a shock to the system from a Real Madrid persuasion, but yeah, they got the job done, and that's exactly what European champions do.
So because I knew that Paul was coming on tonight, I was trying to be professional, took some notes on this game, which isn't like me, but I tried. So, Alan, I think we all know that Celtic, especially at Parkhead, like to start the game quickly and on the front foot. And within 30 seconds, Abada has a really good opportunity and it's well blocked. And then about a minute later, they've got a corner. As a Celtic fan, you couldn't have asked for a better start from Celtic.
Yeah, and I don't think I think they were well prepared because I mean, if you looked at when Celtic did get a corner, Real Madrid were very quick to get two players across there to stop quick corners. They got caught out with a couple of throw-ins, but I think they were well prepared. I mean, it's huge credit to Celtic that Real Madrid put out essentially their first 11 tonight. Now, a lot in these group stages, a lot of the super clubs. You know, the teams get rotated. If you look at Manchester City's lineup tonight, if you look at Chelsea's lineup tonight, there's quite a lot of changes in their lineups. Real Madrid, you know, I didn't expect them to make any changes. They're defending champions. This is the first match of their defence, and they're away from home. So it was no surprise to see their strongest team. I did hope, I think it was more hope than expectation, that there might be a little bit of complacency. Maybe they thought, oh, it's just Celtic, they're a Scottish team, that will be hoofball, it will be physical. I think Vinicius Jr. said before the game, oh, they'll just be a typical British side, it'll be very physical. And I thought, you've never seen Celtic, have you? But actually, you know, the manager is not daft. Ancelotti's a very smart guy, and it looked to me like he had them very well set up. So, for example, on Jota's side, he played Valverde. Valverde's very strong defensively, and Jota in particular, you know, they were doubling up on him whenever he had the ball on that side. So, you know, I think they gave us a lot of respect. I think they set out knowing how Celtic were going to approach the game. And you know, you can't ask for more than that. In terms of, you know, the way Celtic start the game, to be honest with you, when I got to half time, I was super proud of the way that we played it, because it was a coin toss game at half time. It was, you know, Hazard had a good chance, McGregor had hit the post, Abada had a couple of good chances. I think the chance that Vinicius Jr. had where he was straight through on goal, it looked offside. If it had gone to VAR, I suspect he would have been flagged. And so if you looked at, like, for example, expected goals at half-time, it was pretty 50-50, really. So I thought that was great. And I mean, you know, what the manager said before the game, you know, we're going to play how we always play, and then we'll see how it goes. If we lose, then we learn. And you know, I don't think you can ask for more than that. For me, it's all about performance. I know we've lost the game, but what did the performance tell us? The performance tells us for 45 minutes at least, we stood toe to toe. Now, you know, I think we'll need to look at the second half and say, well, you know, what do we need to do to improve to get closer to them? Because there's no doubt that Madrid were stepped up a gear in that second half. But in that first half, we stood toe to toe. We played our game. We were true to our principles. We were true to our performance framework, and I thought we did really well.
Paul, we do a Sunday show where we basically review all the games from the weekend, and we spoke in length about Celtic against Rangers, and I used the word relentless because I thought Celtic were relentless against Rangers. And I thought for large spells in that first half, I thought Celtic carried on from where they left off against Rangers, and they really got after Madrid.
There was nothing Celtic did tonight in that first half that surprised me. I knew they'd come out quickly because that's the Celtic DNA under Ange Postecoglou. They want to start quickly. They want to get things going. They want the quick throws. They want the quick corners. And you know, Vinicius Junior may not have been overly complimentary by saying he was expecting a typical British side, but I'll tell you what, the coaching staff did their job. They knew exactly what to expect from Celtic, and I think at that level, Ange Postecoglou would also have known that Real Madrid would be fully prepared for them, and they were. But give it, Celtic's credit that they started so quickly. You look at the Abada chance, you wonder about the McGregor chance. If that goes in on another night, you get the lead. What I wanted to see out the game, and I'll be honest, was Celtic taking the lead. Because to me, that's a bit like Hearts going to Celtic Park and taking the lead. You want to see what the reaction is of the better team. And let's be honest, Real Madrid, you would expect to be a better team than Celtic, given that the European Championships, the league they play in, etc., etc. That's not a knock on Celtic. Looking at the stats, Celtic aren't often outpassed at home. Celtic don't often have less possession than the opponent at home. So what impressed me about Celtic was, yes, they wanted to go out and have a go, but they also realised at times that Madrid would have the ball, and I thought Celtic showed good discipline at that point. What I think will disappoint Ange Postecoglou, and I think the third goal was an example of it. You could argue the second goal as well. They left too much space at times. They were quite gathered and, didn't quite attack the flanks. Modric's ball out was beautiful for the cross to come in for the goal. They got caught on the side for Hazard's goal. So I think there's things that they will learn from that. But I like that Celtic decided that they were going to go out. They were going to have a go. I have this thing about in European football. If you think you're better than the opponents, go out and beat them. Doesn't matter whether you're playing home or away. And I think that's how Real Madrid play. I don't think they look at the venue. They look at the team they're playing and think, can we beat them? Yes or no? And they go out and play accordingly. And bizarrely, I think that's how Celtic go as well. Celtic weren't scared of Madrid. I think they respected them, but I don't think they were scared of them. They wanted to have a go and be true to the way that they play football. So I think there's a lot of credit to Celtic for that.
As a Hearts fan, the only chance I've got to see Hearts win at Celtic Park is on FIFA. But I'll go back to Alan in a second. I just want to get Dave's thoughts. 12 minutes in, an absolutely sensational pass from Jota puts Abada in. And at that point, I think if Abada scores, the roof would come off Celtic Park.
Yeah, no, it's fine margins. It's fine margins, as Paul touched upon. That first 20 minutes in particular, if Celtic had gained an impetus in the game, had got that goal, it would have had a completely different complexion of the game altogether. And that chance in the 12th minute, it would have been fine margins because now you can tell that if Celtic didn't score it, and then obviously Real Madrid went on to win the game as comfortable as they did in the end, which is the wrong catalyst considering how well Celtic played in the game and the amount of effort that Celtic put into that game. So it's a little bit disappointing from Ange Postecoglou's point of view, but at the same time as well, it's a valiant effort, and they'd have been rude to miss that chance. But I think that's a learning curve for the Champions League. Champions League is a completely different terminology to like domestically, because had you had that chance in the league and you went and missed it, for a team of Celtic's calibre, you're still going to have 10, 15, 20 chances across the game if it's not a Rangers, Atapush, Aberdeen, Hearts calibre of opponent. So it's a big learning curve for Ange Postecoglou tonight, but at the same time, you can take a lot of plaudits from the way Celtic played tonight, and the fact that we're speaking about this chance in the 12th minute says a lot about how it could have been who, what, where, why. And I think that goes to show how far Celtic have come under Ange Postecoglou, because let's be honest, Celtic were on their knees as early as last May. But the fact that they're competitive again, the fact that they're pushing a formidable Champions League opponent in Real Madrid, the fact that they're cruising at the top domestically, the fact that they dispose of the Glasgow rivals on Saturday comfortably 4-0, and let's be honest, Rangers had very little answers. That's a sign of where Celtic are at right now. And when they're missing chances like that, like what they did tonight, that's a sign of how Celtic have changed their methods in the game and how they have a different complexion to their game now. I think that deserves to get a lot of points, but at the same time as well, had they had a bit more composure in the ball, had they had a bit more authority and impetus in the game, it could have been a different night. And that chance, had they had a bit more composure and a bit more character about it, it would have been in, and it would have had a different complexion of proceedings. So a disappointing one, but something that Celtic will learn moving forward.
Alan, Abada's been in great form recently, and as I said, it was a sensational pass from Jota. When Abada's got that ball, are you thinking this is a goal? Because he doesn't do a lot wrong.
Yeah, so my son actually, we both said the same thing. If it was us, I'd have been chopping it back onto my left foot. And then because I think he was just a little bit too far out and there was pressure coming from the defender. But I think if he just chopped back onto his left foot, I think he would have opened the whole goal up and he could have gone either way with Courtois. If we'd scored in the 12th minute, would that have been too early? I think we'd have annoyed them a little bit, and then they might have started really trying at that point. The game for me changed with the Maeda chance at the beginning of the second half. That to me was the big chance. If I can't remember what minute it was. It might be in the 50th, 55th minute when the ball gets flashed across, and Maeda just doesn't time his shot, and it bounces off his left foot. That was a clear chance, and if that goes in with 55, minutes gone on, and then you get to 60, 65 minutes and you're a goal up, the whole energy changes, and that to me, that was that moment. That was that one moment. That was the clearest chance I think we had, in all honesty. And they really started to kind of up their authority at that point. And also we started to tire, because it's, as you say, it's one thing for Celtic to play this high pressing, high intensity game against the teams in the Scottish Premier League. And again, no disrespect, but chasing guys who literally don't have a bad touch, don't have a bad first touch, complete nearly all their passes. And I'm talking about the centre backs, the full backs. They're just technically excellent. I mean, I even said halfway through the first half, I said, there's no point chasing these because they're just passing around us. And actually, Paul made a great point. One of the things that impressed me most about Celtic in that first half was they were very selective about when they pressed. And they pressed at the right moments, but when they didn't have the ball and the press wasn't on, they actually fell back into quite a high block, but so they weren't falling deep. And I think we contained pretty well after that point. So again, as a learning, you sort of say, well, can you do more of that? I was surprised that we fell off a little bit in the second half fitness wise, because one of the noticeable aspects of this season has been the improved fitness levels from a lot of players. I believe a few of the players have lost a few pounds, a few kilograms, etc. And two that really stand out are Greg Taylor, who Greg's a great. He's a trier, right? He gives 100% every game, and probably not the most technically gifted, and probably not the most athletic, but he's probably one of the fittest guys at the club. And actually, I've always said about Greg Taylor, can his game scale to that standard of football? Now, one of the reasons that I had my doubts about him was it's just lack of speed, lack of ground speed. But having lost a couple of kilograms, I think he's just that little bit sharper. And I thought actually he was the safer of the fullbacks tonight. I think a couple of the goals, Juranovic, especially the second one, I was looking at Juranovic, he pulled too far across. And then when the ball came to, I think it was Hazard, I think it was. He just had, we were screaming at him just to throw himself at the shot, and he didn't block it. So actually, there was more danger, I think, came down that side. But no, listen, as I say, that Maeda moment, I come back to that moment, that 1-0 up with 30 minutes to go, you really are in it at that point.
I'll come back to the game in a second, Paul, but Alan makes a great point there about Greg Taylor. Now, when Postecoglou first came in, I think a lot of folk thought that maybe Greg Taylor's days were numbered. But for me, I think he's been one of the standouts in that Celtic team, and the improvement in him has been incredible.
Yeah, I think he got a little bit of bad press, to be honest. He's not a sexy Celtic signing. Let's be honest about that. And I'm trying not to upset anybody here, but sometimes that's not well received. You're going to Kilmarnock and you're taking their fullback. Is not really the kind of marquee signing that Celtic fans come necessarily to expect. So I think he comes with it's different if you come with a £15 million price tag. People expect something. I think when you come and people almost expect less of you. I think there's less tolerance if you do make mistakes. I think, fans can be a little bit more fickle. I'm not just talking Celtic fans, talking any fans, when they're getting a player that they perhaps think isn't really for them. He's an international footballer. He's a good, solid player. And I think he's one of these players that gets better with the players that are around him as well. If you look at the quality that Celtic have, I could suggest there's 2 or 3 fullbacks you could take from Scottish football, other clubs, and slot them into Celtic, and they'd look better than they do at the moment. Is he fit? Is he fitter? I think he looks fit. He's alert, but it is a big step up to go from the Scottish Premiership to this level of Champions League. He's done it at international level, so I wasn't particularly surprised that he was able to cope. I think when you go back to the post-mortem, I think both fullbacks are at fault at times for the goals, but how far back do you go in post-mortem? Every goal has got faults. And therefore, you can always pinpoint someone. The other thing that I think is quite interesting is, if Celtic had gone 1 up with, say 30 minutes to go, it would have been very interesting. As a commentator going to Celtic Park, I've seen other teams, if you come out with Rangers going there, if they're 1 up with half an hour to go, it's a different vibe. It's a different way of looking at it. Celtic aren't often in the position of being the chasing team. And I think that brings a different stress to a team. But as I've already said, I actually think, they've done pretty well. When Livingston go to Celtic Park, we know the financial gap. When Celtic entertain somebody like Real Madrid, we know the financial gap. And Celtic, when they step up, and Rangers, when they step up, and even arguably Hearts playing Istanbul this week, you're stepping up to a different level and you're testing yourself at a different level. Did Celtic pass tonight? Yes, I think they did. They did lose 3-0, but I've interviewed enough managers after games in the Old Firm. They've lost 2 or 3-0, and you look for the positives from it because you'll have chances elsewhere. I think that's tonight is the same for Celtic. They will look for the positives from it and to see how they can improve on it.
Dave, a question here for William Forbes. Does it show up how far behind the Scottish Premier League is? What's your thoughts on that?
No, it's economics. It's economics, though, isn't it? Yeah. So it's economics, Dave, isn't it? I mean, everything comes down to money. The English Premiership will always be better than the Scottish Premiership because of the money. La Liga will always be better than us. We will always be better than the League of Ireland and Wales and things like that. It all comes down to money and what you can have. Every once in a while, you can transcend the financial by bringing together a really, really good side. Celtic have got the makings of that. It's that, you could argue Rangers last season doing what they did in Europe. Hearts have had a couple of European runs. Aberdeen had a side that were able to win the Cup Winners' Cup, not because they were rich, because they got the right blend of people at the right time with the right manager, etc. So, is there a gap? It's always money. Celtic are going to have much more money than St Mirren. Rangers are going to have much more money than Motherwell. You've got to then work in a different way to get competitive. And when we step up into Europe, that's what we see with Rangers, Celtic, Hearts, etc. They've got to take that step up because the financial gulf is there. It becomes a different game. And I think it then comes down to recruitment. And arguably, Celtic have recruited well. I watched that game tonight and enjoyed it as a game of football. It wasn't a one-way battering. It wasn't a one-way street. Celtic showed they had players of good touch, good quality, good ability that made Real Madrid have to work hard tonight. And that's often what managers of the other clubs going to Celtic and Rangers want. They want to show that they've got good players. They want to show that the players can work hard and test themselves against better players. And like it or not, Real Madrid have better players than Celtic, but I still enjoyed the way Celtic played tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the start of the second half, Celtic continued to push for something in the game despite being dominated in possession because Real Madrid were undoubtedly the better side, but Madrid appeared to shake the pressure and nervousness, and that's a sign, as I said to you earlier on, about a Champions League formidable winning side. But as for the question from William there, I mean, your Celtics, I've got much more. This is the old debate they will always have, and Paul's absolutely spot on. Celtic will have a lot more money than the St Mirrens in this world, the Livingstons in this world, the Uniteds in this world, the Millwalls in this world. Rangers are exactly the same. It's like in La Liga in Spain. Real Madrid have a lot more money than the Espanyols, the Deportivos, the Elches. I'm trying to think of all the teams in La Liga, but they have a lot more money than the majority of those sides in the La Liga. And let's be honest here, and it's a reminder to a lot of people here. Real Madrid are probably, even though they're bypassed the day of Galacticos, they've still got a huge budget. They've probably got one of the biggest budgets of world football at this precise moment in time. It's maybe only Manchester City, well, English football, the big sides of English football, sorry, that have much more bigger budgets than Real Madrid at this precise moment in time. Because had it not been that, Real Madrid would be attracting the best players in the world. Ultimately, some of the best players in the world at the moment are probably in England. But in terms of Spain, you've still got world-class players. You've still got your Modric, still got Benzema's. Your Benzema's could easily play in the Premier League in England. That just goes to show you the quality of player that you've got. But also, I made this point to yourself, Graham. Some of the players in that Celtic team tonight could easily play in the Premier League in England. And I'm not meaning a Brighton, or, with all due respect, a Brighton or a Nottingham Forest. I'm meaning an Everton. I'm meaning an Aston Villa. I'm meaning a Leicester. I'm meaning at a push Arsenal, perhaps. Jota could get a game for, not maybe a Man City, but he can get a game for the top four in England, I think. And that goes to show you how more formidable Celtic are compared to the rest of Scottish football. Where whilst the others, like Managerial and so forth, are scrambling. So, yeah, there's a massive difference and a massive gulf between Celtic and the other teams in the Scottish Premiership. Is there a massive gulf between Celtic and Real Madrid? You could say that, but at the same time as well, it didn't seem that way tonight. As Paul said, it was a fantastic game of football. It wasn't as although Celtic were out of place. Real Madrid on paper and at the game had a lot more quality about them, but Celtic showed their quality. And undoubtedly, although two teams qualify out of this Champions League group, I think it's a good point to make that I don't think Celtic should be defined in tonight's result. I think Leipzig is winnable for Celtic. I think Shakhtar Donetsk is winnable for Celtic. For me, I think that question becomes more relevant when Celtic play both of those sides respectively.
Alan, you spoke about the fact Maeda's chance after 47 minutes, and you're absolutely right. It was a huge chance. But after 20 minutes, the captain, Callum McGregor, hits the post. And I'll be honest, I thought that was in. And I have to say, we all know that Kyogo and Giakoumakis are different players. I thought Giakoumakis did brilliantly. Holds the ball up, lays it off. It's a fantastic effort. And again, McGregor doesn't do anything wrong. And he is so unlucky that hasn't gone in.
Yeah, if buts, maybes, and you have to take your chances at this level. If you're going to beat Real Madrid, these have to go in. It's as simple as that. It's brutal, but that's it. You're not going to get many chances against Real Madrid, and the ones you do get, you've got to finish. Unfortunately, and that's the big lesson. And as you've rightly been discussing, in most leagues in world football, the team with the biggest budget will generally come out on top. I think it's interesting to ponder in Scotland. Do we think that some of the teams do the best that they can? And because in my view, and this might be controversial, I don't know, teams like Hearts, Aberdeen, Hibs, I think could play at a better level than they do. And I'm thinking about the quality of people in the boardroom, the sort of managers that they go for, the structure of the clubs, the sort of identity of the team, the tactics, the how much do you put into the sports science, the analytics, all the things that don't cost a lot of money that you can improve on. So, for example, we played a team last season from Norway called Bodo Glimt, and they were phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And if there's a template for a club, it's a very small club. I would suggest smaller than any of the teams I've just mentioned. And I'm not saying that you just copy and paste, but there's clearly learnings there for how clubs in more cash-strapped leagues like the Scottish League can focus on things like academies, development, having a template, having a framework, having consistency running through the club in terms of how they play, how they select players, how they develop them, how they educate them, how they look after them in terms of nutrition, science, etc. How they, how they use data, how they, all those kind of things, which you can't afford the best footballers, but there's no reason why you couldn't afford a good physio or a good sports scientist or a good data analyst. These things are not expensive. So I still think there's a lot more Scottish football can do, really, to improve the overall quality of the league. It's just my opinion.
Paul,
I mean, I think that. Yeah, sorry. I think just to answer that, I think that's interesting. I think clubs are slightly further ahead in some of these areas. It then comes, and sometimes this amuses me. If you go to Rangers or Celtic at a game, and the home team say wins 1-0 or they're pushed all the way, the fans get a little bit disgruntled by that because either we're Rangers or Celtic and we should be beating these teams. If you flip it the other side, and teams get thumped 6 and 7-0, it's not a product worth watching. So it is kind of difficult. I don't disagree with you in terms of the ethos of a football club, and I think that's not just something that I think applies to the Scottish Premiership sides. I think you've seen this in the English Premiership as well. Look at clubs like Everton who are going through managers, going through signings, wasting money left, right, and centre. I think there is a more scientific side to football, and I think the teams that embrace, I mean, let's be honest, Scotland were slow. I mean, the Italians were embracing nutrition and, rest and all that, 30, 40 years ago, if not more. We've been slow. I think there's a lot on the sports science side, the data side, the injury prevention side, that I don't think it's necessarily down to the individual club or manager. I think it's down to what's above. Why are we spending money on this? Well, if you're going to buy a £2 million player, let's look after that £2 million player so he's on the field more often than he's off it. So I think there is data revolution has started in a lot of clubs, and I think as it catches on in more and more places, I think we will see that it's much more important. And it's these things that I think can help narrow the gap. Celtic clearly have got a good infrastructure in their club. You can see that when you go there and you know what's behind the scenes. I think that's one of the things that will narrow. Go back, 30 years, Scotland drawing a team from Norway, perhaps from Sweden, Republic of Ireland, first, second round of anything. That's fine, no problem at all. What I've said on the radio before is now not enough teams in Europe fear getting a Scottish team in their group. A lot of teams want the Scottish team in the group, and we've got to do something to change that.
Yeah, and just to balance what I said, actually, I think there are a couple of really cracking examples in Scotland of teams being really smart. And I'm thinking of Livingston and I'm thinking of Ross County. I mean, what they do with the resources they have, I think, is absolutely incredible. Ross County virtually have to rebuild their side every summer, and they just bring in, and they not just bring in, big hulking players. They bring in speed, they bring in ability. They use the loan market in England very smartly. Livingston, God bless them. They have a template of the way they want to play. They maximise the physical environment of their own ground, the artificial pitch, and so forth. And it might not be the prettiest football in the world, but my goodness, it's effective. And I'm not damning them with faint praise there. I genuinely think they do a fantastic job in maximising what they can achieve. And listen, I'll put my cards on the table. I've been a fan of Scottish football for all my life. I love Scottish football. I think it's the most storied, the most interesting, deep, rich seam of lore that there is in virtually any league. And I was brought up in the early 80s when you had, and I know I'm not going to get all misty-eyed about it. I know we can't go back to those days when you had five challenges for all of the competitions at least, and even teams like Morton, Partick Thistle, and what have you had their day. We have to move forward, to your point, Paul, and I think teams have to embrace. I think Celtic actually are actually only at the beginning of that journey. I think Postecoglou will be a lightning rod for the modernisation. I think you'll find that it's very much the cult of Postecoglou in terms of he is very much a one-man force driving that club forward at the moment. I think if you looked behind the scenes and you looked in the background, yes, I'm sure Celtic have got more data analysts and more sports scientists than Hearts have because of the money. But you'd be surprised, I think, that there's still an awful lot of modernisation still to come if Celtic want to be. And I don't even use Real Madrid as a benchmark here. I use clubs like Salzburg, like Atalanta, Udinese, teams like that who really are not well moneyed, and the way that they close the gap with the big clubs in their countries, which is synonymous with Celtic trying to close the gap with the likes of Real Madrid, is to be smart about all those things that they can control, be smart with the things they can spend their money on.
Are you going to come in there, Dave?
Yeah, I was just waiting to say, as Postacoglu came out and said, I thought the first goal was always going to be crucial. We had to open up a little bit and we got punished at Ange Postecoglou. Obviously, part of me giving his reaction to Celtic's 3-0 defeat to the reigning Champions League champions. And that's the thing, as Alan has touched upon, with Celtic, a great chance after 12 minutes, and also the great chance in the second half, and they didn't take them, and it proved to be the case. Obviously, the first goal was going to be crucial, as Ange Postecoglou said, and once Real Madrid got it, they sniffed board and got a few more and killed the game off as a contest game.
Yeah, I mean, Paul, obviously you think that when Benzema goes off, it's a boost, but then Real Madrid bring on Eden Hazard, who's just another fantastic footballer. But to be fair to Celtic, I thought the first half, I thought Celtic competed really well, and they could have easily gone on a couple of goals up in that first half with the chances they had. But I think if you're Postecoglou, Paul, you've got to be delighted with that first half performance, especially where Celtic took the the European champions all the way.
Yeah. I mean, I think I said I wasn't surprised in any way with how Celtic played. I thought that's how they would come out. From what Dave said, it's what I would expect from Ange Postecoglou. Look for the positives, because he always does, but not in a myopic way. He wants to give that message, because players will tell you they don't read things, they don't listen to things. We know they do. So you give that positive message out, and then you talk about internally, how you can improve. We talk about how you develop a football club. Are Celtic lucky to have Ange Postecoglou? Would be a question. And the answer is yes, because that was not the original intention. They got lucky because of it. And I think they've got the better manager out of it. And he's embraced how Celtic want to be. And sometimes that's the break you need. And I think Celtic did get a break by not bringing in Eddie Howe. And I think what Celtic will take out of this is being very positive. You look at this fixture, you would have written this fixture off in terms of points in your head if you're looking to get into second place. I think it's ideal that they played Real Madrid first at home. Now go to Shakhtar and take something from there. I think that that's the next thing. I think that would be on Celtic's board. And if Celtic play like that, they're very, very capable.
Yeah, I mean, Alan, obviously second half, you talked about the Maida chance, which was huge. And if Celtic got the first goal, who knows? But second half, Real Madrid showed their class. Those 3 goals, Luka Modric, I've said before, is a class act. And just that second half, Celtic maybe ran out of steam a bit, but Real Madrid just showed their quality second half.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that we did run out of steam. I think that's fair. I guess we're not used to playing a team that's racking up 790 passes. But having said that, I do think that the fitness has been improved this season. We've had a full, Postecoglou's had them together for a full summer. It's been, he made some interesting comments on a podcast with Open Goal, where he said actually for the first 4 or 5 games of the season, he felt that we're actually a little bit flat on the Saturday because he'd been driving them so hard in training. He says they train at match intensity, and actually they'd almost like left it on the training field a little bit. I think them, but what he said was there was a reason for that, and it was to get ready for these Champions League matches. So I think there's still a bit of work to do on the fitness front. Could he have maybe freshened things up a little bit? I mean, I thought Hatate in particular was absolutely outstanding. And I wouldn't have taken him off. O'Reilly, hugely talented player. I don't think he had the best of himself this evening. Maybe he could have gone off a little bit earlier, possibly. But yeah, that fitness side I think is something we need to look at. But also, Madrid are actually well known for. I think the Benzema going off actually unsettled them a little bit. I'm not saying they were heads had gone or anything like that. I'm just thinking it unsettled them a little bit because I was thinking at half time, well, they can't just chuck the ball in the box now, right? They're going to have to. A lot of times when Celtic play teams that dig in a low block, there can be a lot of frustrating games. You go round and out and down the other side, and it's a very difficult system to break down. And without a target in the box, which they didn't have with Benzema, I did wonder if actually we could probably frustrate them here. But I think they just upped the pace a little bit and they passed it a little bit quicker, and we just struggled to deal with that level of quality. It's that sustained quality. I mean, the second goal where the passing that started in the right back corner, and the one touch, and it's taking the ball on your first touch under pressure, performing the next action, and then moving. All of those things are what are the mark of a quality player, and they had them all over the field, and that resulted in a goal. And there's very few teams in the world that would be able to cope with that quality from the back.
Yeah, Paul, before we came on tonight, we were talking backstage about Luka Modric. I mean, he's 37-year-old. You've obviously watched a lot of European games. I mean, just Luka Modric is just a world-class footballer.
He's outstanding. He's wonderful to watch. And the first big European game I did at Celtic Park, just to digress for a second, was Celtic against Porto back in the mid-90s. And the thing that struck me watching football at that level for the first time was just how nonchalant these guys are at first time bringing the ball down, and they've already thought what they're doing with it. And that's the gap. And Modric is that kind of player. He's not worried about controlling the ball. He's worried about, not even worried. He's thinking about where he's going next. And there's certain things that footballers will tell you that damages them. Speed kills, especially if you've got an end product, and also somebody who's basically so quick in speed of foot and speed of action. It's very, very hard to play against. It's wonderful to watch. And again, I go back to the fact that tonight's game, for a neutral, was a good game of football to watch. Because it was interesting to see how Celtic would go trying to upset the likes of Modric, but you can't really even put a physical presence on Modric. Celtic aren't really that type of team. Plus, Modric is genuinely too quick. So it's actually a waste of a player to do that. So these things are fascinating. And, when you come up against players of that speed of thought, speed of action, that's what makes it fascinating. And I hope that people who watch that tonight, and even Celtic fans, you've got to be appreciative of skill like that. Because players like Modric are special, and you don't like to see people do that against your team. But if you take a step back, you just actually appreciate 37. Age is a number. It doesn't matter. He looks like he could go for another 2 or 3 years if he wanted at that level. I think you've got to appreciate football like that. What I think all football fans hate is the fluky goal that comes in, hits off somebody's backside, and you lose by 1-0. Not when teams are doing that to you. You've just got to tip your cap to them and say, yeah, I get that. As a football fan, I get that.
Luka Modric is 6 years younger than me. Right. On you go, Dave. On you go.
Yeah, I'll give you the full transcriber to what Postecoglou said, because it's finally out there in the public domain. He said, "We created opportunities and handled our threats really well. We caused them some problems. When the first goal went in, I thought we lost our composure a little bit. They have the quality to punish it at this level. You aren't going to get too many chances. Those in the fine margins, and those are good enough to capitalise. And they are good enough, to capitalise on those. As if we got the first goal, it was made us comfortable in the game, and made them uncomfortable. It was required Real Madrid to take some risks. They controlled the game really well after they opened the score. We had to chase the game a little bit, which then inevitably gives the opposition spaces. So that's Postecoglou's transcribe from tonight."
I've got a question here we're going to ask to Alan, actually, as a Celtic fan. It's from Liam Ewens that's just come in. Did anyone else think Jota was very poor tonight?
So one of the reasons that I started Celtic by numbers was many reasons, which I won't bore you with, but one of the many reasons was a slight frustration with the sort of binary nature in which many football supporters look at performances, and a player either has to be brilliant or poor. There's no kind of nothing in between. A performance is made up of many actions and many aspects of the game. It was starting to think about that problem of what does a performance actually consist of? How do you quantify it? How do you measure it? How would you describe it? And then what do you sort of how would you then talk about that in a way that would make sense and resonate with people? So all that being said, I don't think we did see the best of Jota tonight. I think they paid him a lot of respect, as I say, by putting Valverde on that side, who's a really, really hardworking, athletic, physical player. And Carvajal, obviously, the Spanish international fullback. He was up against two very good players. He was doubled up on a lot. They paid him a lot of respect, I thought, Real Madrid. They'd done their homework. The pass to Abada was something which not many footballers would even have seen, frankly. And there was an audible gasp in the stadium when he pulled off that pass. And that's a moment, right? That's one pass, but that was a sort of moment you get from a player of that ilk. To be fair to Liam, I, in no way am I going to sit here and claim that Jota had an outstanding performance tonight. I don't think it was by any stretch his best performance. I'm sure the stats will back that up. I don't remember him having any even shots on goal. I don't even remember him creating many. He did have a few good moments in the second half where he put in good crosses into the box, but he never really got past his fullback. Carvajal, I mean, this again, top level fullback. So he probably learned a lesson tonight. But what I have to say about Jota is he's a brave lad, and he if he gets beaten, if he gets kicked, if he tries to take a fullback on and he gets clattered, or even if he gets outpaced, it won't stop him trying again. And he'll keep going, and he'll keep going, and he'll keep going. So I think he'll learn from this. Listen, he was up against top-class opposition. I think they showed him a lot of respect. No, he didn't influence the game as much as he has done in domestically, but I wouldn't write it off as particularly a poor performance. Usually because I'll wait for the data before I form my opinions.
Paul, one player I want to ask you about is Matt O'Reilly. Now, a year ago, he's only 21. A year ago, he was playing for MK Dons against Cheltenham Town in League One, and tonight he's lining up against Real Madrid. I mean, the guy's come full circle, really, hasn't he?
It is quite remarkable. And Matt O'Reilly, if what I said about Greg Taylor earlier, who would have expected Celtic to sign Matt O'Reilly? Let's be honest, it's not really the market that we were expecting Celtic to go into. But with the recruitment that they've had, I was very interested to see. And I mean, I keep all my own stats and things like that of appearances and stuff like that. One of the things you see on my line is just the sheer number of games that he's played for Celtic. He's plugged in. I thought he might have just come in, as a bench player, but he's proved to be a very important player for Celtic. And I think he will learn from tonight. I don't think there's any doubt about that. You can't fail to learn. I would like to think that somebody like Matt O'Reilly will have recorded the game and will sit and watch it back. Or he'll get the full thing from Celtic, the full view, just to see. I think he could learn so much from tonight, and I think there's a lot of coaching can go in tonight that will make him an even better player. I think, again, it's you live and die by your recruitment. What a pickup he's been.
Absolutely. I mean, Dave, tonight was obviously going to be a hard game for Celtic playing against Real Madrid. They now play Shakhtar Donetsk, who got a 4-1 victory against RB Leipzig tonight. Now, I'm not going to lie, I thought it might be between Celtic and probably RB Leipzig for that second place. But now that game against Shakhtar becomes huge for Celtic next week.
Absolutely. As I said earlier on to you, I don't think tonight Celtic's story should be defined on games against Real Madrid. I mean, always Celtic have an expectation externally to get out the group, and when I say externally, I mean the public domain, the Scottish media, the Celtic supporters will kind of be expecting Celtic to at least be still in European football beyond the World Cup and Christmas. But at the same time, for Celtic to get anywhere near to those specific levels, I think beating Donetsk is vital and pivotal to the way Celtic will handle those expectations. Now, Leipzig is going to be just as vital because Leipzig, I think, are in a similar boat to Donetsk, but in slightly different ways because Leipzig isn't a formidable German side. The likes of your Bayerns and your Dortmunds topple what goes on at Leipzig. Leipzig was really good a couple of years ago, but they've lost their steam a little bit after Nagelsmann left, and that was what's hampered them a little bit. They've still been getting Champions League football, and full credit to Leipzig for that, but that's the barometers of German football, where you might not do as well, but you still get Champions League football. And imagine if that happened to Scottish football game. Imagine we had Dundee United not having a good season in fourth, but still reaching Champions League football. Oh, we can play. But sadly, that's not reality for Scottish football, I'm afraid. And yeah, when you look at it, I mean, we've got 5 German sides, I think, in this year. We've got Bayern, Dortmund, somebody Leverkusen, maybe. I might be horribly wrong in that part. Leipzig and Frankfurt. So, yeah. And Leipzig had a poor result by all accounts tonight, according to Liam Ewan. So, it makes next week a massive game now. And it's up to Celtic to go and rise to the challenge. But most importantly, got a massive game coming up at the weekend, first and foremost, in the league's bread and butter for Ange Postecoglou and Celtic.
Alan, we've spoke numerous times in the show about Ange Postecoglou, and since he came into Celtic, he's completely transformed that team. Now, you're probably better placed than I am to answer this question, but I mean, what is it about Ange Postecoglou that most impresses you? Because for me, he always comes across, he never seems flustered. He's really good with the media. He just seems a very likeable guy, even as a Hearts fan to say that. He comes across a very likeable guy. What is it about him that impresses you so much?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's so unimpeachable personal integrity. He has a plan. He has a vision. He's an excellent communicator. He walked into that building with no backroom staff, nothing, and he had to sell his vision and his plan for the club, and win everybody on board. And that's the board, the backroom staff that were already there, the players, and he did that. And you know, they believe in what they're doing. He's not doing it to be to try and play sort of pretty football. He's doing it because he believes this is the best way to win football matches. He believes the best way to win football matches is to play the way that Celtic do. And what he's then done, very impressively in my mind, is he's set about building a squad of players who fit into the way that Celtic want to play. And you know, we've had very few bad signings in the last 14 months, which is not. I mean, all club supporters complain about their signings, and it probably seems Celtic probably have got. Why are we complaining type of thing? I completely get that, but we have made a lot of bad signings, bad decisions over the last few years, and the signings that he has made have been absolutely coherent and have been. Giakoumakis is a great example. Giakoumakis is a player, if you look throughout his career, has been badly used by certain clubs where he's just performed badly. And I suspect the reason is they've tried to play him in a style of football, either as a target man or as an all-round striker, that he's just simply not got the tools to do. But at VVV Venlo and at Celtic, his job is very simple. And that's, again, I think Postecoglou's greatest gift is he simplifies everything for the players. And I think you speak to any player, they appreciate that. And Giakoumakis is, he's there to get within the 18-yard box within the goal, and to get on the end of fast low crosses that get fired across. And his movement over 3 yards, which again I'm damning with faint praise, is exceptional. And his ability to finish with any part of his body. He doesn't care which part of his body he uses to score. He just gets something on it. He's not proud. And Postecoglou saw that and thought, this is exactly the sort of player I need in this system. So that's just one example, but there are many more. Matt O'Reilly is going to be a wonderful footballer. He sees things quicker than anybody else on the pitch at Scottish level. And now he may lack this slight athleticism and ground speed to be an absolutely top level player. But of all the players we've got, he's the one I think will be the one that plays at the highest level going forward. He's only 21. So I think there's a lot more to come. I was actually really disappointed with the Leipzig result tonight, and the reason for that is I do disagree with Dave slightly. I think that Leipzig have got a wonderful squad of players and a dreadful manager. We saw last season in the Europa League, they were tactically inept, absolutely dreadful the way they set up. And got knocked out by Rangers, deservedly so. But the way that they tried to play everything through the middle against a team that packed the centre was just brainless. And Tedesco, the manager, his results are really bad. And it looks like, on the back of the game tonight, he could well get sacked. Now, I'd be absolutely devastated about that, because it means that by the time that we play them, they may have a sensible manager in place who's going to take that wonderful group of players that they do have and get them back to playing this fast, aggressive, pressing football that Leipzig were successful at for a few years. So I'm hoping they keep hold of Tedesco until at least we play them, in which case I'll really fancy our chances.
Well, we are vast running out of time, and I'm just going to go around to each of you just now and ask you all the question. I'm going to start with you first, Alan. Do you still believe Celtic can get out of this group?
I do, and listen, I believe it or not, for me as a Celtic fan, playing any sort of European football after Christmas is a successful season. It really is, because we've just not had that too many times over the years. So, I think we can. I think we've shown tonight we can stand toe to toe with Real Madrid for a good period of the game. I think we've learned a lot from that, and one thing you will get from Postecoglou is he will bring those learnings into the future games. So I'm still optimistic. I am.
Paul, do you think Celtic can get out of the group?
I thought when the group came out they'd finish third. That's where I still think they'll finish. I think Celtic will use the home advantage, I think, against Shakhtar and against Leipzig to their advantage, and I think they're more than capable of going away from home and picking something up. I think they'll finish second. I think it's a stretch for second. Would I like them to? Yes, because you want to see Scottish teams. It's one of the rules, isn't it? I don't care who the Scottish team is. You want them through. But no, I think they'll be third, which would obviously mean dropping down.
Dave, are Celtic getting out of the group?
I agree with Paul. I think home advantage against Leipzig and Shakhtar Donetsk will have a major say in how Celtic get on in the Champions League this year, but also a lot will depend on. I didn't realise the situation with Leipzig. I'm going to be brutally honest with you, Alan. I didn't realise the manager was so far out of his depth. I'll be brutally honest with you on that part. I think
Dave. I think they're 11th in Germany at the moment. They're having a terrible season.
Jesus, I didn't realise it was as bad as that. I think a lot from a Celtic point of view, Graham, I think a lot depends on the management situation in Leipzig moving forward.
And I am going to be Mr. Positive, even though I'm a Hearts fan, that's not really there. But I'm going to go Celtic. I'm going to go Celtic will get out the group, and I'm going to say they will finish second. So it just remains for me to thank my guest tonight, Alan. Sorry for calling you Alison at the start. Thank you again to Dave for joining me. And
it's my Sunday name.
Much to Paul for joining me as well. It's been a great show. We are back tomorrow from 9 till 10 to cover Rangers against Ajax. And on Thursday, we are back to cover Heart of Midlothian, my team, in the Conference League. We are back tomorrow. We shall see you later. Thank you to everyone for joining us and for all the comments. Bye-bye.
It's Champions League time once again. And you can catch up with what's been happening in the games by tuning in to the Locker Room Specials on Indie Live Radio and in the